Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is the fastest woman in history, breaking records before 25. Yet instead of celebrating her greatness, critics complain she's not entertaining enough. But when she finally clapped back, she left them speechless. Was she wrong, or do people just love to tear down greatness?
Greatest of all time, McLaughlin-Levrone, up on bowl at the moment. Good running on the outside from Jasmine Jones.
Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone isn't just fast, she's historically fast. The numbers don't lie, and hers are in a league of their own. She became the first woman in history to break both the 52-second and 51-second barriers in the 400m hurdles, a feat no one else has even come close to achieving. The 400m hurdles isn't just about speed, it's about precision, endurance, and perfecting the rhythm between each hurdle. And yet, Sydney made it look effortless. Then came the Paris Olympics, where she didn't just win, she dominated. Clocking in at 50.37 seconds, she shattered her world record and cemented herself as the undisputed queen of the event. Breaking records is one thing, but breaking your record on the biggest stage in the world, that's next level greatness. And yet, despite all this, there are still people who act like it's not enough.
The women's 400 meters.
And Sydney's in lane 5, and what will she do? We've seen her go out in 22 seconds and have to kind of...
Some critics argue that because she doesn't race as often as other athletes, she isn't contributing enough to the sport. But anyone who understands elite-level competition knows that top-tier athletes carefully plan their schedules to avoid burnout and ensure they peak at the right moment. That's exactly what Sydney does. She doesn't waste energy on meaningless races. She shows up when it matters and delivers performances that leave the world speechless. The fact that she doesn't step on the track unless she's ready to give a record-breaking show isn't a flaw, it's a strategy.
Speed of Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. Look how far ahead she is of a world-class field in behind her at the moment, and she's going further away. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone.
For an athlete who is rewriting history, it's baffling that some people are more concerned about her stage presence than her actual talent. The internet has been buzzing with 3 main criticisms. She doesn't race enough, she doesn't interact with the crowd enough, and she doesn't have a big personality on the track. There's an expectation that in addition to being one of the greatest runners of all time, she should also be some kind of entertainer. The first complaint is that she doesn't compete as often as fans would like. Unlike some athletes who race multiple times a season, Sydney carefully chooses her events. But there's a reason for that. She's not here for participation trophies, she's here to break records. And if that means running fewer races to preserve her energy and stay at peak performance, then that's exactly what she's going to do. Then there's the argument that she doesn't engage with the crowd enough. Not every athlete is a showman, and that's okay. Some thrive on hyping up the audience before a race, while others lock into their zone and focus on the competition. Sydney falls into the latter category. She's not there to dance or play to the cameras. She's there to run. Expecting her to do anything else is like asking a concert pianist to juggle while playing Beethoven. It's completely unnecessary. The final critique is about her personality, or rather the lack of it, according to some. There's an expectation that she should be more expressive, more animated, more of a performer. But why? Why does a woman who is breaking world records have to prove she's entertaining enough too? Male athletes who are quiet and focused don't face this same kind of scrutiny. The truth is, Sydney doesn't need to perform for anyone. Her achievements are the only statement she needs to make. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone has been hearing the noise for years, but when it finally reached a tipping point, she decided to shut it down once and for all. In an interview on Spill the Tea, she responded to the critics in the most direct way possible, making it crystal clear that she's not here to put on a show. She's here to win. I get a lot of flack for not showing enough personality on the track, but it's because I'm trying to give y'all the best performances possible, period. There was no sugarcoating, no excuses, just straight facts. The idea that she should somehow split her focus between breaking records and entertaining the audience was ridiculous, and she wasn't about to entertain it. Then came the ultimate mic drop moment. Pick one. We can't have both, period. Okay, thank you. It was the kind of response that left no room for debate. Either people accept that she's one of the most dominant athletes of all time, or they can keep complaining while she keeps collecting gold medals. Either way, she's not changing for anyone.
For the Grand Slam track, tell me your thoughts, your initial thoughts on just having this opportunity and how it's going to complement what you do as I know you're right now.
Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone's critics might be loud, but Michael Johnson is louder. And when a four-time Olympic champion speaks, people listen. Johnson, a track legend himself, wasn't about to sit back and let people question Sydney's commitment to the sport. Instead of letting the internet run wild with false narratives, he stepped in and dropped some hard facts that shut down the debate once and for all. You don't have to hope. She was the first athlete to sign a Grand Slam track contract, committing to fans that she will run 8 races per year against the best in the world. In one tweet, he exposed the biggest flaw in the argument that Sydney doesn't race enough. Not only is she competing, but she's doing it at the highest level possible, facing off against the best athletes in the world. That's not the behavior of someone who's avoiding competition. That's the mindset of someone who is dedicated to excellence and strategic about maintaining it. Critics love to compare track and field to other professional sports, but the reality is different. Unlike basketball or football players who have long seasons with dozens of games, track athletes don't have to show up for every meet to prove their greatness. The best runners carefully plan their race schedules to maximize performance, avoid injury, and peak at the right time. Sydney is doing exactly that, and Michael Johnson, a man who knows a thing or two about what it takes to be great, backed her up in public. Johnson also has a personal connection to this debate. During his career, he faced similar criticism for being too serious, too focused, and not engaging enough with fans. People wanted more personality from him too, but he let his records and gold medals do the talking. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Sydney is doing, and Johnson sees himself in her approach to the sport. Instead of playing into unnecessary theatrics, she lets her performances be the spectacle. The sports world loves a good rivalry. It adds drama, builds excitement, and gives fans someone to root for and someone to root against. But in Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone's case, the rivalry people are trying to create doesn't exist.
Dalilah Muhammad always gets out fast and aggressive, and she is doing that right now. This is a woman who's only run 3 races up to this point, but when you talk about being a tactician.
For years, there have been attempts to pit Sydney against Femke Bol, the Dutch hurdler, who is also a rising star in the 400m hurdles. On paper, it might look like a natural rivalry, 2 of the fastest women in history competing in the same event. But in reality, there's no real battle between them, at least not in the way the internet wants there to be. Sydney isn't the type of athlete who thrives on drama. She doesn't go out of her way to engage in trash talk or try to build up tension before races. She focuses on herself, her training, and her goals. If someone else is on the track competing against her, that's great. But she isn't looking over her shoulder worrying about what they're doing. Femke Bol is undeniably talented, but she hasn't been able to truly challenge Sydney on the big stage. Sydney's world record time of 50.37 seconds is a mark that no other woman has even come close to. Her times are so far ahead that it's difficult to even compare her to her competitors. It's not a rivalry when one athlete is consistently miles ahead of the other. The idea of a forced rivalry is nothing new. Fans and media outlets often push narratives to make competitions more exciting, even when the athletes involved don't see things that way. In Sydney's case, she's never been the type to play into the drama. She respects her competitors, but she's not here for the hype. She's here to race, break records, and make history. Whether or not there's someone next to her trying to do the same is irrelevant to her approach. What makes this situation even funnier is that neither Sydney nor Femke has ever publicly shown any animosity toward each other. They both have tremendous respect for one another. If anything, Femke probably understands better than anyone just how hard it is to do what Sydney does. It's not a bitter rivalry, it's just 2 incredibly gifted athletes doing their best in their respective careers. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.